How's it going, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Welcome to Back to the Mac episode number 18. I'm your host, Jeff Benjamin. We have a lot to talk about regarding the upcoming iMac refresh. So it is largely expected that next Monday, during the WWDC 2020 keynote, Apple will reveal a brand new iMac that's been redesigned. Now, it appears that this new iMac will be a replacement for the larger 27-inch iMac. And if you head over to apple.com, you're gonna notice that the 27-inch iMac is in short supply. Now, this all correlates with the recent update to the Eurasian Economic Commission database, or the EEC database. And it's there where you'll find a new desktop Mac with model identifier A2330 listed. And this is generally a good indicator that new products are on the horizon. Now that's all cool, but what really stood out was leaker Sonny Dixon's tweet back on June 9th about this upcoming iMac. In his tweet, he lists that the new iMac would be announced at WWDC. He also mentions that the new iMac would have brand new design language, like that of an iPad Pro, with Pro Display XDR-like bezels. He also notes that the new iMac would have an Apple T2 security chip, AMD Navi GPU, and get this, no more Fusion Drive. Now, although we don't know everything about this new iMac, what we do have is a lot of detail about what's to come. So let's break down some of these details right now. The iMac is like a weird design phenomenon because it looks both old and new. It looks both sleek and not so sleek at the same time. I couldn't think of a word for not so sleek. Unsleek? No. You know what I'm saying though. It just doesn't look cool, but at the same time it does look cool. I can't explain it. It's just a weird thing. And I think that's one of the reasons why Apple was able to get by with the design for so long, because it still looks good, even though it looks extremely dated, if that makes sense. Now is definitely the time to move on because, I mean, it's been 10 years plus going with the same general design, having those huge bezels on the edge and then having that massive metal chin at the bottom. It just doesn't work anymore. It's time to move on. And it especially looks outdated next to the Pro Display XDR with those really tiny bezels. So Sonny Dixon had a really interesting description. He said it was like an iPad Pro with Pro Display XDR like bezels. So that's almost one and the same in my opinion. Like the Pro Display XDR basically looks like a blown up iPad Pro when looking at the display head on. So of course this all leaves like tons of questions, like how will they pack in the internal components and keep it cool with this new design? How thin will this new iMac be? What screen size will it come in? How will it look sitting next to the Pro Display XDR? What will the stand be like? Hopefully not $1,000. What will the rear of the iMac look like? So although we apparently know a lot about this iMac, there's still a lot of stuff we don't know. So that's why I'm really excited for Monday. Now with all that being said, I think it's very possible that Apple will go back to the non-tapered design, because like right now the iMac, if you look at it from the side, it has that sort of tapered design. And it adopted that design a while back. Previous iMacs were more akin to the Pro Display XDR, which is like thick on the side and there's no taper at all. It's just, a little thick slab of aluminum. And I think that's actually what the new iMac's gonna look like. Personally, I think we already have kind of seen what the new iMac's gonna look like in the Pro Display XDR. Obviously, there's gonna be some differences, but I think the general design language is basically gonna be the same. Hopefully it'll be the same because the Pro Display XDR is gorgeous, right? Now, of course, there are going to be some obvious differences. I mean, you're talking about a $6,000 monitor versus a roughly $2,000 computer with a display all in one. So in other words, don't expect a fancy pants $1,000 stand and don't expect the lattice pattern on the back of the iMac. It's going to be pretty simple, I would imagine. So back in April, there were rumors that Apple would be launching a 23-inch iMac to replace the 21.5-inch iMac later this year. Now, with that in mind, if that new iMac, which presumably it will have the same design language, then that could mean that this 27-inch iMac replacement is going to be a little bit larger. And of course that makes sense. We've seen this before in the iPad. You have thinner bezels with more room to expand the display within the same footprint. So I think it's totally possible that the 27-inch replacement could be, I don't know, somewhere in the ballpark of 30 inches. Remember, the Pro Display XDR is a 6K 32-inch display. Now on the flip side, Apple could presumably keep the 27-inch form factor and just simply reduce the footprint of the iMac itself, making it smaller with the same amount of screen real estate. This is super exciting stuff, man. Fun fact, the iMac is the only Mac computer in Apple's entire Mac lineup that doesn't yet have the Apple T2 security chip. But you can guarantee that's going to be changing on Monday. The T2 security chip is, of course, the ARM coprocessor responsible for security aspects like encryption and secure boot and things of that nature. And I've even heard some speculation that maybe this would be the first Mac product to adopt Face ID. I'm not sure about that, but it's definitely the Mac product that makes the most sense for Face ID, because there's a webcam that's always, it's always there. It's not hidden under a lid or anything like that. Like that webcam, it's always there, staring at you constantly. Stop staring at me! But despite its name, the T2 security chip does much more than just security. Yes, this chip, it's got a side hustle, or two, or three, or four. And that brings benefits. I mean, the T2 security chip, it has an integrated system management controller, image signal processor, audio controller, and SSD controller as well. And these features will definitely help the performance of the iMac, especially that SSD controller. We'll talk about that in just a few. Now, all of the current iMacs that Apple sells with dedicated graphics feature Polaris architecture-based GPUs. But Sonny Dixon in his tweet states that these new iMacs will feature AMD Navi-based GPUs. This is a big deal, as it's going to result in a significant performance improvement overall. However, as someone who's always messing around with video, the improvement that I'm most looking forward to is the consumer 10-bit HEVC encoding on board. This can make working with 10-bit video in apps like Final Cut Pro 10 so much better, so much smoother, so much quicker to export. One of the reasons why I like working with 10-bit video is it reduces the banding effect when you're like pointing at the sky, or you have a lot of color gradient going on in a scene. The banding, you can kind of see where like the colors start breaking apart. It's a weird thing, I can't really describe it that well, but you've probably seen it before where you just see like little bands of color, especially like if you're filming a sky or something like that with a lot of different, very subtle gradients. Now think about Canon's upcoming EOS R5. This is a camera that's going to be able to shoot 8K video, 10-bit 422, encode it with H.265. So this iMac should be able to crunch that video better than any iMac before it, and better than most Macs available right now. So that's definitely something that I'm looking forward to trying out. And then here's the thing that I'm so happy that is finally going to be a reality come Monday. No more Fusion drives. Let me say it again, no more Fusion drives. I have to say the state of Apple's iMac lineup with regard to storage is downright just utterly pathetic. Now granted, you can get an SSD in these iMacs, you can configure an SSD, that's all fine and dandy. But the fact that Apple still sells to this day a 5400 RPM drive in an iMac. I don't care if this is the entry-level iMac that's not Retina, I don't care, it's still ridiculous. So you're gonna tell me you couldn't even give me 7200 RPM in 2020? You couldn't even give me that. But I don't even want to talk about the 5400 RPM drive, that's irrelevant, we know that's garbage, we know that's trash. I want to talk about the Fusion drives, and those two can go out in the trash with the 5400 RPM drives as far as I'm concerned. Because these are, kind of good, but a lot of terrible. Because they give you a little bit of good, with the hybrid drive mixing the SSD and mechanical hard drives together. They give you a little bit of the SSD, so it's kind of good, but then they give you a whole lot of that spinning mechanical drive, and that's kind of bad. If you really push your machine, if you're doing video editing, you're transferring video across Ethernet, for instance, 10 gigabit Ethernet, maybe you have a Thunderbolt 3 adapter. I've actually shown how much of a bottleneck this introduces. Fusion drives just aren't good products at all. They were a stopgap solution and they need to go. And it looks like they are, so why am I even mad about it? They're listening, Jeff. Come on, dude, calm down, all right? So basically with these new iMacs, there's no more fusion drives. It's all full SSD storage across the board from the entry-level model all the way up to the highest tier model. And that's where that T2 security chip really comes into play as well with the SSD controller. You're gonna have some really fast speeds with those SSDs. One of the best features of the 5K iMac, and one of the reasons why I still think it's one of the best values in the entire Mac lineup, is the fact that you can upgrade the RAM after the fact yourself. Indeed, Apple even includes a handy little door on the rear of the 27-inch iMac for facilitating RAM upgrades. For modern Apple, that's pretty much unheard of. You could save so much money upgrading the RAM yourself after the fact instead of buying it during the build to order process. But with this new updated iMac, I just find it hard to believe that Apple's gonna carry that feature over to this new design. I would love to be wrong about this, and hopefully I am wrong about this. For instance, think about the iMac Pro, same overall design, but the internals were completely reconfigured, and if you wanted to upgrade the RAM after the fact, you actually had it taken into Apple or another authorized service professional. I guarantee you that is one of the very first things I'm going to be looking for with this new machine. And I'm going to be so disappointed when I look at the rear of the iMac and see absolutely nothing. Now what about I/O? Well, for several generations, the 27-inch iMac came with the following: 4 USB-A ports, 2 USB-C/Thunderbolt 3 ports, 1 gigabit Ethernet port, 1 SD card slot, and a 3.5mm headphone input. Now honestly, I don't see a lot changing with this layout, but my hope is that Apple adds another Thunderbolt 3 bus along with 2 more Thunderbolt 3 ports. Now think about it for a second. The Mac Mini has 2 Thunderbolt 3 buses, 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports. Higher end MacBook Pro models have 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports, 2 Thunderbolt 3 buses. It is so convenient to have those 2 extra ports and that extra bus. I just don't see Apple shipping a new iMac with just 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports. And what about the iMac Pro? Well, from the outside, it looks almost exactly like just a regular 27-inch iMac. Granted, you have the space gray colorway, but besides that, it looks like a regular iMac. And that's a problem because if you ship this new iMac, it's gonna look way more up to date than the iMac Pro, which costs $5,000. So I don't see Apple allowing the iMac Pro design to continue on. I mean, it's been the same since 2017. I see them definitely upgrading the iMac Pro to match the new design this year. And let's talk about my most wanted wildcard feature, if you will. A feature that I really honestly just don't see Apple implementing, but I would love to have. And that is target display mode. Let me say it again for the people in the back. Target display mode. Now, if you're new to the Mac scene over the last few years, you may not know what target display mode is. But prior to the 5K iteration, it was a feature that allows you to use the iMac as an external display. Yeah, seriously, like you would simply connect a Thunderbolt cable from your MacBook Pro, for instance, connect it to your iMac, and you could use it as an external display. It was great. Well, considering that the only display that Apple makes today costs $5,000 without a stand, there's a huge area at the lower end of the spectrum that Apple just isn't servicing right now. I mean, granted, there's the LG Ultrafine 5K display, but the build quality on that is questionable at best. So I think it would be so cool if Apple brought back target display mode that allows you to connect your Mac Mini to this new iMac and use it as an external display. What a massive perk that would be. iMacs would fly off the shelves, I'm telling you. They would fly off the shelves, like literally fly. I don't think this is truly gonna happen, but it would be such an amazing feature, especially considering that Apple doesn't sell a lower end display at all. It's not often when Apple refreshes a desktop staple like the iMac. Yeah, so this is pretty much the way the iMac's gonna look for the next 100 years. So I really hope they knock it out of the park with the design. So although we have a pretty good idea of what to expect from Monday's presumed launch of the 2020 iMac, there are still loads of unanswered questions such as, how much will this thing cost? What do you guys say? How much do you think the new iMac will cost? Do you think it will just fit right in at the current price point? Do you think Apple's gonna charge a little bit more? Let me know down below in the comment section. So now it's time to get to the giveaway because every Back to the Mac episode, I think every one I've done a giveaway. So we're gonna give away a $50 iTunes, do they still call it that? $50 iTunes gift card. Sadly, it's only available for US residents because that's Apple's rules, not mine. So sorry to all our international viewers and readers about that. Sorry. But I am making it super easy to enter. All you need to do is head over to our Instagram page, like the post about this episode of Back to the Mac, and leave a comment. And also make sure you're following us so that I can DM you if you win. So you can find the link down below in the description. I'm gonna pick one person at random and I will contact you via DM on Instagram, and then I'll get you your gift card. In the next episode, I'm gonna be reading some of your comments from this episode on the air and answering questions or responding to comments, things like that. So be good, be nice, and leave something down below. And then finally, hope you guys enjoyed Back to the Mac episode number 18. Leave me a thumbs up if you appreciate this video to let other people know that this video is legit. And also hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already to subscribe for more videos. Again, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments section. This is Jeff with 9 to 5 Mac.